wait, who is that? That's that guy? Wait, what? And like, like kind of putting it all together, particularly like with the father-son dynamics that were throughout. And we'll dive into that in a bit. But I love this concept that the Ultramega is only spawned by the virus, and the virus is only spawned by the Ultramega. Like linking those two ideas together was fascinating to me.
It definitely showed one could not exist without the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hidden power.
Total balance. You know what this book weirdly reminded me of, and we can dive into this like later as we get into this. And Manny, tell me your thoughts about this. This really reminded me of Evangelion.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of like the constant like, I won't say biblical comparisons, but like the father and the mother and the son like themes constantly throughout. And like the body horror elements, like how in Evangelion, like merging with the mech is like painful, and like these massive fights that happen, and it's like this existential threat, but it has a consciousness, and like how the Eva and like the angels are like cosmically linked in the same way that the kaiju and the Ultramega are.
Yeah.
Like I just got like, and it's kind of, this book is kind of depressing too.
Yeah.
Oh, it's incredibly
general compare. Like I did not remember really how like vile, sick, twisted, misanthropic, cynical, depraved this book was. Like the first time I read it, I think I left with just like wow, this book is fucked up. I like it. Like, and I just like had fun with it.
And I just want to know, does James have something against blondes? Like, have blondes really impacted James' life? Or maybe it's Dave, right? Because James is probably not sitting there adding color to the page. That's all Dave. So does Dave have something against blondes? Because as we go through it, you'll realize that blonde women are kind of the representation of evil, if you will. I'm not saying that that's true in real life. I'm just saying that that's the impression I get from the book.
No,
oh my god, this gorgeous 2-page spread. Holy smokes.
That's my screensaver on my computer.
Yeah. I used to walk into Manny's room and just stare at his screensaver, and I was like, what is that? And he was like, oh, it's Ultramega. And I was like, well, okay, I gotta read it. Like, and just like, yeah, I mean, what a great way to just like really introduce you to the scale of the action sequences in this book.
Yeah.
Like,
no days off.
I wanna jump in and say that I unfortunately didn't get a chance to read this before because the week really caught up with me. But in a way, that's actually once again giving me this interesting perspective. I read this quickly last year because Manny specifically recommended it to me for this project I was working on that had like basically a large creature in the back, and it was to help me understand scale. Right. Yeah. So you have like, and so I remember flipping through this and actually hearing you guys talk. The big impression I have from this, and I'll dig more into it when I read through it. It's just like, it's just like meditation on the inherent body horror of big stuff. Like I think like Evangelion was getting into that as well in a way, like you were saying, Kevin. It's sort of like when you watch Power Rangers, it's very sanitized, but like as a kid, maybe this is just Sam Lamb, but like I was like, wait, so they're just like in front of this huge, I don't know, it could be a dong in there for all we know, just like a huge body part, right? And so there's this like weird like magic school bus thing that I thought about is like, what would happen if I were like, I don't know, in their earlobe? What would that be like? And there's this weird kind of existential horror as you scale in and out, which I think like, and from big to small and back again, which it just occurred to me mirrors the narrative from what I can tell. Mirrors the narrative of the book
totally.
itself.
And there's some great sequences where they like directly reference like the weirdness of that in like some very comical ways. We'll flip back to it, but like there's a specific sequence where after he shrunk back down, his clothes are missing, which is just funny because he exploded out of his clothes. So he's standing naked on the street, and his head is massive. Like he's normal size, but his head is still just like blown up, and he's on the phone talking to his wife. She's like, "What's wrong?" And he's kind of like, "My head is huge, basically." Like, is your head okay? I can see you on live TV. He's like, "Yeah, I'll pop back into shape. I just have a sore neck." Like, hilarious. But I flipped past some really juicy stuff with this fight.
Those fight sequences.
Like, just the tentacles coming out of this thing's mouth. It's so
But-
good.
I don't know what it says about me that when I read through this and you guys referred to it as body horror, I was like, really? And then I went through and I was like, yeah, I guess intestines and like also worms and stuff coming out of someone's mouth is. I'm very twisted naturally as a baseline, so I was just like, this is just a Friday night, honestly.
This is just a freaking-
Yeah, I guess like also just like the idea of like tentacles and worms and bodies and stuff like that. It's like really like how acclimated to like manga and anime are you? Because it's not that weird if you're into that stuff, but
Yeah.
But it is this whole like, there's that running meme about Nina from Fullmetal Alchemist, but like, FMA, which is one of my favorite manga and anime of all time, is I talk about body horror, right? I mean, this is from episode 1, but it's such a weird. I am curious about your guys' thoughts on like comics as a whole. I feel like talking about renowned, mentioning kaiju being there and like kind of large beings and that, like, what do we think is going on there, like from like a human standpoint? Because I know from a that's fucking cool standpoint that I'm into it, right? But I'm like curious what like what I think, especially comics specifically as a medium, how it allows us to explore that. I mean, it's just the answer might be as simple as like it's about existential horror, but I think it's like deeper than that. I teed up a really big question, so if you could just answer in 3 to 5 sentences. That would be
well, I mean, I think the simplest like answer is that like unlike movies or video games, like comics are unbound by budget and practicality.
go.
So you really can just be limitless in how you want to portray these things,
For sure.
which I think is a big part of it. But also like how like creating physical reactions to just ink and paper. Like how can you immediately establish that kind of connection, tone, and feeling in a reader? And it's like by the gore and the viscera and the kind of twisted imagery and also what the character is going through with distortion and pain and all of that. Like it's immediate, it's jarring. I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah,
I love that, and I'm looking at just on the page that you've got open, like within one single page, you have panels next to each other that are extreme close-ups, like literally to the point where you see his fist punching through viscera through a body, and then you have the scaled out with the cars in the building. And there's an interesting thing that I don't think could even be possible in any other medium, where our human mind reads these panels and connects both the macro and the micro instantly, because it's all on a single page, right? So we fill the gap somewhat literally, actually, and like there's this almost like magic eye thing
Brock,
of
what's
looking at this, and you have this like chromatic
Thanks
thing
for
of
joining.
like
We're talking
I'm
comics
seeing both. So it's almost as if I am being asked to come in at the most micro level of what would it feel like to be a fucking punch to the gut, right? Or feel this tentacle wrap around me. But it's happening at this literally massive scale is like really, really effing cool. Not us being apologists for comics on this stream, but yeah.
Yeah,
We'll always talk about how comics are cool.
Exactly. 2 things that I wanted to touch on. The body horror thing that you talked about, Sam. I can't imagine what being Godzilla is like because I am not Godzilla. I'm not, 50 plus stories tall and a giant scaled lizard thing. But I am a human, and I've often thought it would be cool to be that size. But if something were to start to engulf my arm, like I have a physical and mental reaction to that. So the body horror thing definitely latches onto people because I think we can internalize it and we can process it. What if it was happening to us? We can imagine those things, which is why I think this is so effective. Still having human protagonists in it, and you still get the amazing craziness of the kaiju. And I love James's pacing. I love the fact that he doesn't walk you through everything, but he lets you see every angle possible. Like the stuff that they're not going to show you in a cartoon, the stuff that they probably wouldn't take the time to show you in a movie, he's going to take time and painstaking detail to put that in this book.
Oh yeah, he's so great.
Hell yeah.
I will say too, like with the body horror element, that when there's a monster or something like putting damage on to the guy, like he feels it. You know, they're not like, I mean, they're like superhuman beings, but they also feel those punches. They also feel those stabs. They feel everything. I mean, there's one part where it gets super gory and the dude is literally dying, right? And it's just like, oh, so he's not entirely like bulletproof or whatever. He's not indestructible. You can still get extremely harmed in that, you know, and that adds to the intensity. It's like, okay, how's this dude gonna pull it off, you know?
I remember watching a video essay about, it's probably some DC EU movie, about the difference between a good fight scene and a bad one. And simply put, it's that, like, a good fight scene, there's stakes, right?
Yes.
Like, you actually think that both, like, everyone involved could be hurt. And then so the corollary to that is that a bad fight scene, I think the way that the SAS described it is like, it's almost as if they're dancing on air. Because there isn't a sense of, like, that you could be affected if you were in that fight. And it doesn't necessarily, that doesn't entail body horror, but body horror is a pretty potent and poignant way to like bring the viewer into that. I mean, this conversation also explaining to me why I love dark art so much. Is it touches on a part of human experience that we often ignore.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Jung and the shadow and all of that. But yeah, I mean, and also, like, in its most primitive sense, like, body horror is just like, you know, we all have that little kid in us that just, like, thinks worms and bugs are gross, you know? Like,
or delicious. I don't know, different folks.
But, yeah.
I am curious about your guys' feelings about the power of colors. Like this seems like such an obvious thing, but I think I just get the sense that colorists are often overlooked. I'll be very candid, sometimes I've overlooked them. But you know, just last week we talked about Murder Falcon and who is it Sean Spicer? What's his name?
Mike Spicer.
Mike
Spicer,
Spicer.
yeah.
Whom I started following, and I know that he and Daniel work often together, and that some of the color choices are just phenomenal. Like the first thing when I got a copy of Ultramega from my employer, like immediately was like totally struck by the color, and I think that surely is a really really key part of body horror that we're talking about, amongst other things.
A huge part of it too is texture. And you're not going to get it on this stream or from this video, but like this book is unreal in how dense its texturing is. Like there's weird halftone screens and spatters and splats and just like everything's got this grunge to it, but like a really great blending of colors to just like enhance these textures. Everything is super organic and gnarly. Like everything's gross. Like it just truly, you feel icky when you read it, and I mean that in like the most loving way. Like it's so effective.
Oh yeah. I mean, also
like this is a great panel.
James is putting a lot of that stuff traditionally. He's doing it traditionally.
Hey Manny, would you mind like moving a little bit closer to the mic or adjusting yourself a little bit? You just got a little bit quiet for me.
Does that work? Hello?
It's you're still pretty quiet.
Oh, I am?
For me,
that's not good.
You were loud when you started the stream, so I don't know what's changed.
Did you lower my mic volume?
No, I've actually increased it over this time. I lowered it initially, but then I've brought it back up.
I didn't do anything. Okay.
I can bring you up a little bit more, but you're higher than you were initially.
How's that? Am I good?
That is much better.
Okay, I just muted and unmuted myself. So anyway,
mute yourself.
Yeah, but James is doing a lot of those textures and halftones and stuff traditionally, like on paper, and then Dave goes in with those colors to just amplify the colors. But he's not rendering anything super crazy. He's kind of letting the line art speak for itself, you know. James is crazy on paper. I don't know if anyone looks up his originals, you'll see that all that black line art is the same. and all those textures are like the same pretty much. So Dave Stewart is the man. James Harren is the man. Like they nailed it.
And just as far as color goes, I don't know if this was intentional. Everything that is real life that is kind of set with just a regular backdrop of the world, like mundane, we're going through life, we're, walking through a neighborhood, you're going up to this strange house. It's all very muted in its colors, which I think for some of the scenes, as we're building up, definitely lends to that body horror, because it is just very dingy and dirty. But then the action, like anytime there's action, then Dave like really ups the color value. You can definitely see a difference going back to that first action sequence and just some of the colors used in that versus some of the things that we'll see as Kev has up on the screen as they're going by this house. It's just all muted. Greg. It's dark. It definitely, I think the entire book has a very down tone as far as like, I think we said it. It's not a happy-go-lucky book. It is awesome. It's amazing. It's gorgeous. It's fun. It's fantasy. But it's pretty heavy on what happens to characters and everything else. But I think it also gets to that body horror when you get to see some of these things that James is drawing. Either people made out of weird fleshy bits, so they're not really people, it's just a humanoid form. Or even, I think there's another scene that we'll have coming up with kind of the, I think it's the first wife of the main character.
Yeah.
I need to confirm that with you guys. Okay.
Yeah. This is his first wife, basically. And I think there was like a very brief mention of like the wife on this page where he's talking to his current wife. I love that his current wife is always covered in like food and vomit.
Yeah.
That's always just she's just like this tired lower class dullard. It's just like always got a crying kid.
But what I love
pretty
is
much
the
the
fact
only
that
issue with her. So
you do get number one, she's a brunette, so she's not blonde. Keep that in mind. And for just an average human, she does something incredibly heroic in the first book.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
totally.
But she always seems to be aware. She's like comfortable with this life that he has as this supernatural human that can do these things. I mean, I think you brought up the part about when he transforms, he doesn't have any clothes, and as his wife and him are having that discussion on the phone, she's like, "Yep, there you are. Couldn't find pants, huh?" It's like this is all just mundane to her. She gets it. She's down with it. No big deal.
Yeah. And then just when we meet this first wife too, got like this first reveal panel, and I'll get it out of the glare here. Is just where you see this just meat and detritus and gnarly gunk and shit, and like it even does a close up on her intestines here, which is just like a perfect insert. Like just because you see this and then it just zooms in. There's no other context to it. It's just gross intestinal worms and texture and slimy and it's gooey.
And the dude's just like,
she's talking. She's oh yeah. Sweet Lord, the smell in that place could knock a buzzard off a shit wagon. And then this like mother creeping in from the other room, and you see the silhouette of the kid at first. And you're like, because you see the kid in this panel, and you're like, oh, that's gross. And then you get the reveal of the kid, and it's just actually her intestines like forming the silhouette of a kid. Which is just
whatever this meaty stuff is that she can control. Yeah, and again, hat off this is, I think, just another great letter work by Russ. That mother, it just conveys so much to it. It's very haunting.
Yep.
Don't have the.
You're keeping us from getting to like the really body horror piece coming up.
Oh, that probably my favorite page.
Is this your favorite? I'll let Sam talk about this. This disturbs me so much.
Oh yeah.
You're talking
I
about
don't
the
like-
big with a big one pager.
Before we get wait, yes, the one pager is great. I just don't want to miss the conversation around before we get there. This sequence is amazing. The very brief flash to the other Ultra Mega guy and this like cult like high society party that he's in, where you see these like red hooded cultists and like rich people with monocles and robots, and like there's like a goat to sacrifice wandering around.
Yeah.
And there's like this bear guy from The Shining, and it says, so I says to him, do I look like an amateur blowjob bear or a goddamn professional? And it's just like such a stupid joke and an amazing detail about this like Illuminati high society. And this is like the only taste of it we even get in the whole book, which I thought we'd come back to this. I thought this was going to be like a whole societal statement we're making. It's not. We just go right back.
It's the fun little piece you wanted to put in the book. It's great.
Exactly my taste. Some of these panels I was convinced he made just for me. Like, I swear. And then he has this flashback to his past coming back to haunt him. It's your son, Jason, and then boom, here is this horrific body horror. I'm assuming this is what you were talking about here?
Oh yeah. I mean, every time I flip through this book, it just, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person. It just jumps out at me, and like in the best way possible. I think it's gorgeous, but again, I'm very twisted, so don't mind me.
Oh, it's great.
It's so
A lot of
good.
noise. It's very wet. And like the fact that it's like all little like maggot-looking things spewing out of her, the hollow eyes, the spaghetti hair. It's
Yeah,
There's
once
a lot
again,
going on
talking
here.
about Russ, like I just love, I love lettering in general, and then I love weird lettering, like that weird balloon where you're like, is it? It's just wormy text.
Yeah.
the native kaiju language.
Mm.
So good.
Think of that scene
But
in The Thing.
it's from a visual art standpoint, like just to zero in on this panel is like one thing I love about comics that I have to be honest that like growing up I didn't quite appreciate, because I've always been such an illustrator where I'm looking for the one big like moment, right? But just like any other medium, what's cool about comics is you have the pacing, where you have things that, you know, going back to what you said, Ben, is when you have these more mundane street moments, there's less saturation, it's more muted, and so on. And then you have big epic scenes. It's more saturated, and more like just like vibrant colors. But for me, it's like every once in a while when you shift from a typical comic panel, and it's, you know, there's still the suggestion of form, but it's much more unrendered, relatively speaking, and it's a bit flatter, right? And then you get to these like these like single pagers or these like large panels, and then you get really, really nice rendering. I mean, like this could be like this page could like really be a lesson in like beautiful illustrative rendering, right? Like the with the worms and the entrail viscera and stuff, and there's all these like rounded forms, you know, is I've come to really appreciate that you need both of those. You need the back and the forth, the rhythm of that to tell a story, and that like it makes these. I want to be careful and not suggest that like the less rendered pages are the payoff for the more rendered pages. That's such an illustrator thing to say, but that they inform each other dialectically.
Well, and I want to just make sure that I toss this in there too, Sam. You said beautiful. It is something as far as the way the textures are built and the amount of detail that James puts into this single page. I wouldn't call it incredibly disturbing, but I agree wholeheartedly. I think when to reference the color thing, the saturation just really builds this up as a truly terrifying moment. So I think you're spot on there.
We should put beautiful from my mouth in huge air quotes. I have a very strange and twisted view on what is beautiful. I remember watching Hereditary and certain scenes that involved body parts. I remember telling my brother like, "Wow, that looks really cool." He's like, "Okay."
I loved Hereditary. This is an aside, but Sam, this is what I wanted out of the last shot of Hereditary. I wanted her to float up into the treehouse. You know, with there's like the grandmother, right?
Yeah.
Up in there. I haven't seen it since it was in theaters, but I wanted her to like basically float up into the treehouse and then have like the headless grandmother up there, and then she just breastfeeds her, and that be the last shot.
That's good, and that would have been totally consistent with the narrative of the story too.
Exactly.
I guess, yeah, they needed the literal payoff to the audience to be like, okay, and here's the end of the exposition.
It sounds like we need a Mouthbreathers Guild movie review stream.
Right.
Yeah, I would love to do that. It's just harder because of copyright laws. I can sit here and show you every panel of this comic book and never come into legal trouble. But if I show more than like or like a couple unbroken minutes of a movie, then I get DMCA stricken.
Yeah.
If I had the time, I'd probably do video essayist work and stuff like that. But you got to edit a lot.
Yeah.
DMCA stricken is actually the name of my next metalcore album. So
that's right. And talking about good body horror here too, and just like I just want to call out this whole page because she walks into the basement. Well, one just like this like where the sidewalk ends, like concrete and pipes, like platform here. But then she steps onto like the wall, and then like the actual sense of like where she is on the wall is like flipped around a bunch of times as she walks to her son, who's hanging like this, and then just this. So fucking gross. It's so rad. I love it so much. And just that reveal, this little head and like all these arms and vines, and then there's just like I don't even know what this is, like placenta just like falling out, and like this like goo pod that's like harvesting the kid, like that. Also that great page turn where you follow the trail of guts and then it flips over, and then boom, there's like the actual son harvesting in there. Is like
I just like
terrifying.
How does one do that whole translucence thing? Certainly traditionally, I feel like it's probably not as hard as I think. Maybe it is, but
there's some there's like screen tones that you can do that are like basically white, but they're transparent enough for you to see what's underneath. He could have done that, or Dave Stewart could have done just like a color hold. Yeah.
It's super cool. I want to call out more texture that you guys are talking about. If you look at like the lower right of like this embryonic sun being, there's like kind of that splatter. You know, it just adds a little bit of extra. I reminded of when I did Inktober, I would throw in splatters like that because it just adds this natural sense of texture. I love that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I love that this looks like a translucent testicle. It's sick. We got a dealer in the chat. Brock, what's good? What's cooking, brother? How you doing?
Oh, Brock, what's up? So you bring up, Kev, the different things that are hanging off of this. Something that they explore in like other issues. They never. Again, I feel like there's some things that just aren't clearly connected, which I'm completely fine with. I'm okay to draw my own conclusions, but you have this giant kaiju thing that's growing, and there look like they're these little other ones that are growing as well. And in the towards the end of the book, there are all these others that claim to be kaiju siblings.
Yeah.
That all are on par with one another, and we'll get into that later in the book. I then have to go back and be like, oh, maybe that's what those were growing on this, right? There are all these other kaiju or monsters that end up developing this entire civilization in the upcoming books. And even though we focus on the one monster, this is that start of that society that kind of overruns the rest of humanity in years.
Yeah, and I think like back here is kind of where that corroborates is when they're on the like ultra mega plane, and then there's like what they refer to as like maggots growing. Like, but I also just think like the core like why the kaijus were able to develop in that way is like very simply explained. When he meets up with the other ultramegas, yeah, he goes, "What's going on, Jason?" He explains that he was, his wife was pregnant with a kaiju and infected with the kaiju, and then they let it go live far away for 10 years, and then he says, "We've never neglected an infected host for that long. Never let a kaiju develop. Who knows the scale and complexity it could have developed over such a time span? My guess is you triggered a small metastasis. It grew from there. It appears she no longer requires our presence to transform. She's free of us, and with all the power of that cosmic virus at her disposal. And I think that is kind of like the blanket little explanation that they use to just explain how the kaijus basically spawned and became their own civilization of mutant people. At least that's how I'm kind of reading in between the lines there.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. And I just love, like, you get the the Ultra Mega Power Rangers.
Yeah.
And like you're like, oh, this is gonna be sick. They're gonna fight this thing, and then the fist emerges, and they're like, oh. Man, just ... here in this panel. Like,
literally destroying a city in one
One
punch.
thing I love about the city, like at all times in this like story, is that it's like all the lines, even though these are straight skyscrapers, it's always like amorphous and like organic.
Yeah.
Like, unless it's like specifically juxtaposed against like organic forms, like here on this panel, like where you get some straight lines finally. But then like everything else, like all the shots of the city, it's like these waves of ocean here in this panel, where it's just like everything is kind of rounded and breathing and lumpy, and I don't know, it's rad.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like that like first double page spread that we get when it says no days off, with the like that city is like perfect combined with everything moving around, getting busted up and stuff. I look at that page every day. I love it. All the debris and everything. And then the doom, how that's lettered, that's like my favorite.
Yeah, it is crazy.
One thing I have to say, just as an illustrator, and Manny, I don't know if you feel the same way, but that shot that you were talking about towards the beginning of the book,
yeah,
is a fantastic way of how I feel like I need to do settings and scenery, and unless something's being actively engaged, like it has to feel, I have to follow all the rules of perspective, right?
Yeah.
Well, as this thing starts to emerge, and right before the battle, you get this like page where it's a 2-panel and the giant fist coming out of the ground.
Yeah.
And it's great because at that point, James can just kind of throw some rules of perspective out, because there's such an earth-shattering thing going on.
Yeah.
That he's like, yeah, you know what? It doesn't matter. Buildings are just going to fold and crumple, and he just really gets to have fun with showing the destruction of a single city in one panel.
Yeah, and then leaving out so much detail. Like, a lot of artists would probably follow through with those lines that lead right to the Ultra Mega group, but he leaves it open, and it also puts into your mind that there's like atmosphere going on. Your mind kind of fills in those gaps, those lines and stuff. You know that's a building falling down. You don't need to see the lines connecting or following through the characters and stuff. So it's just simplicity is going on. There's design choices that he's doing. He's an amazing illustrator.
Yeah, I think that this panel is a great example of that, because like even when you're leading up to this with the traffic, you don't really get a sense of like how busy the traffic is. Like even there's like atmosphere splitting cars apart here with like lots of umbrellas. There's trash and corpses in the street and stuff, and then you get a little bit of it here, but then it's just like all of that goes away just so you could have that accents of yellow and the speed lines, and then just cars kind of coming in and out of the ether and bodies flying everywhere. Like,
it just does the establishing shot, so then you can just get away with leaving some details out, on other panels, and it works.
But then you go back to the sense of scale, and immediately,
it's a giant
buildings rendered and this arm.
The arm that goes flying in and takes out a bunch of cars and people.
Yeah.
And they even take time to set up things like this, because the driver, as they're going through, again, it shows just the wife number 2, she knows what's going on. Because they're in the car, and the guy points out, why are there people over there lying in the street? There's no blood. And she's like, oh, it's the concussion from the fight. Like, they're all knocked out cold. And then you see this huge panel of one of the Ultra Megas starting to fight the kaiju, and the taxi driver's just like, I'm out of here. takes off.
Yeah.
She's
You
like,
better make her
that.
This is what happens when gods fight.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's the point of the book right there. And again, gods, astral beings, back into the Evangelion kind of comparisons.
Dude, face covered in blood. Like, when that arm rips through there, it cuts back to
Dude.
the wife, and she's just like, again, covered in blood, and she's like, oh, it's green. It's not your dad. It's not it. So, all right, we got to keep going.
Yeah.
And then the next page. Oh my god.
Crunch, munch, slurp. This is like so good.
It's like, eat my leg, eat my fucking foot.
Yeah. And like, disgusting. It ate my foot, bastard. And this, I mean, here's your Evangelion panel right here.
Yep.
That's literally Shinji and the Eva. Like, that's
Right when in the beginning of when the Evangelion machine gets that thing in its face, or like the horn in its face, and it's just like,
yeah.
yeah, it's like the first time seeing it scream. It's like, what is happening?
I also love that, like, this like bit with Ern and like explaining kind of very briefly what he was doing and why we never got a lot of Ern. You know, like that eyeball fucker from the dream made it sound so simple. My 5-year-old son was sleeping next to me when I woke up. I saw what you saw, Jason. You know, expressing that loss. And then I've gone for so long exploring this wretched power. It has depths. Do you buy it? The eyeball bastard story? Do you think we're made of something different than this thing? And then he just like goes into like super mega ultra like mode, you know?
I'm so glad that you read through that. I guess I needed someone to read it for me, and I'm glad I had your sultry voice. But I just put 2 and 2 together. That panel that we saw with Ern covered in blood, like half cast in shadow, looking like he couldn't believe something happened. Now I know what happened.
Yeah.
Like, that is, God, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But can I
And
say
that's
what's
why-
not explained, unless you point it out to me?
What's up?
So, like you say, he goes this Eva mode when he turns into kind of Ultra Mega 2.0, which, number one, gorgeous, just amazing seeing how they almost become more of the kaiju-like, showing there is, you know, there's a delicate balance to the Ultra Mega, and that they are one and the same almost. But they don't go into, oh no, what's the real cost? What's really going on? Which maybe that's where it would have gone. Again, I can only hope that we would hear more about this and get some of the stuff talked about. But this allows such a cool fight scene between powered up Ern and this giant monster.
Well, I think that like also ties in directly because the Evas, you know, the Ultra Megas look the exact same. I guess when in the end when Noah starts to go super berserk mode, you know, you get those same things with the giant accentuated eyeball, the kind of hands becoming more claw and monster like. Like, I feel like that is kind of a sneak peek into the explanation of like how these bonds work, because when you have that sequence of the body horror like melding together with the Octum guy, the Ultra Mega alien, melding and morphing with Noah and kind of conjoining their parts, like that I think is an explanation of as to what's happening here and the depth of the power and the relationship of Ultra Mega and why he's convinced that they're not so different from the kaiju if this is what's happening, you know. So we don't have a full explanation, but we're getting pieces of it.
Oh yeah.
And then this fight scene is just fantastic.
Oh,
I love the stretching bodies here, this kind of acrobatic
Dude,
kick.
that's my favorite
and the
arm
panel
right there. Yeah.
This one?
No, going up that panel. Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah. It's so rad. You know, just the scale of things. Buildings are just like turning into debris, like while they're in this fight. And I think they do a really great job of establishing the stakes and really making you feel like, okay, they're really digging deep and they're gonna win this fight, and then they fucking don't. Like, they just straight up do not win this fight at all. And he just gets his head like fully ripped off. Is wild. And he rips out the eyeball from his chest. This fight is so good.
Yeah.
That's the thing. This is what happened the first time I read this book, was that it actually took me a long time. I just kind of got lost in every panel. I was just kind of obsessed with every fight scene and studying the composition of each shot, because it's
He's like animating
masterful.
with these too, like when he throws the body up in the air before he explodes. It's doosh, 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 and then kaboom. You know, it's so.
He sends his fist into the ground, and then the head just getting sent into space. It's almost something you'd like. He does a really good job of showing you these details, and then making you forget about them, and then putting the pieces together later on, which is like,
Yep.
I think really difficult to achieve, because showing somebody some details and making note of something is like, but being like, yeah, this is gonna be important, but I'm not gonna like tell you how important it is. I'm just gonna kind of let you figure that out as you go through this. Is like kind of genius level comics.
Yeah. Just setting up some fun time for later.
And just like the
Well,
smudging on this page. Oh,
You get two pieces here that are going to set up for later. Well, number one, being pulled by my intestines. I hope I'm dead before something like that ever happens to me.
Right.
Instead of being pulled halfway across the battlefield by them.
Jeez.
Yeah. But yeah, you get the arm or the hand launch into the ground that sets up for, the next issue or two. But then the head, like having his head punched off. Number one, amazing. Looks fantastic. Shows so much energy and force. But also something that comes back. And then I've thought too, you've had all these monster fights so far with all the entrails and blood and visceral and vile. It's like, what would really happen if that much fell on to a city or something? And I'm like, oh wait, guess what? We get to find out what that's like.
Let's find out.
I also just want to call out that sense of scale and perspective. Look at the size of this fist and arm compared to the rest of the body. Like, there's already all this squash and stretch going on, but like, this fist is like the size of the whole body.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Hulk
You know
style.
what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, comic book artists take note. You don't nothing has to really fully line up or make perfect sense.
Nope.
Because if it feels right and it looks cool, just do it.
Yeah. It's basically what Jack Kirby said, man. If it works, it works.
And then we'll get into the blood, because here's just the flood of blood. Blood flood, if you will.
Blood flood.
It just comes pouring out like a geyser, because he doesn't shrink once he dies. It just
he's still
pours
there.
blood.
Well.
I love the mention that it like coagulates and gets sticky and like turns into one solid mound, and the baby is just like stuck in it.
The Red River. I mean, there's no elevator doors opening for this. It's just straight up somebody's head got punched off.
Yeah.
I was Ben on the earlier topic of just color saturation and values. Like, that whole blood page, or these blood pages, is so interesting, because you switch from the epic battle, which has the saturation, and also just like the difference in different colors and hues, and then it almost shifts almost in the exact opposite direction, where I wouldn't say the blood is muted, but it's not as saturated as you might think for blood, right? And but it's like very simple, and we understand both through context and also through the drawing what's going on, and it's insane precisely because of the simplicity in the coloring. It's just so it makes it almost like you can almost hear the deafening silence of him having fallen, and then the blood just kind of like a bit like from effing, what's the movie? Sorry.
The Shining.
The Shining.
The Shining.
Like that, almost that kind of like cacophonous silence, right? That comes over. I love that one panel with just the eyes, like the eyes of terror.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
He's so good at it.
Fantastic. I mean, it's also worth calling.
Maria.
Yeah. It's also worth calling out that everything's been in like grays and greens and blues, and so that just like when you see these pages that are just purely red, it hits you hard.
Yeah.
Color theory, you guys.
Terrifying.
Color theory. And then this kind of summation of how this, impacts the world. Like, you watch your gods and protectors die, but because the ULTRAMEGAs die, so does that like kaiju disease, like the thing that turns people into mega kaijus. So you don't really see them for a while, except they learn to develop on their own and create their robots and build walls around the city. It made me think a lot of Attack on Titan as well.
Yeah.
And just the way that society develops and how we immediately go into a world of scavengers and class warfare and gangs, Mad Max style, roving through the wildlands. And
Can you go back a page,
cults.
Kev? Actually, I gotta go back 2 pages.
This one with the robots?
The one where we see the robots and the mass evacuation.
Yeah.
Is that it's a left-hand page where we see kind of the big shot of the robot. It says Moloch lives. Is that a Watchmen shout out?
It could be. I know he does a Daniel Warren Johnson shout out in one of these backgrounds. It's like
I wonder what the inference is.
Or something.
Yeah.
I mean, Moloch's it's an old name in occult and Judeo-Christian stuff for basically I think the original name referred to a Canaanite god, but I feel like that is actually a call out to something though. I definitely feel like it's a call out to something.
And I know James.
I just think it's a. Oh, go ahead.
I know James Harren is a big fan of like anime and manga and stuff, so he's probably been taking lots of notes from Evangelion and stuff and all that. Especially what's that one show that's like Power Rangers? It's not Power Rangers though. It's like before it.
Like Kamen Rider.
Kamen Rider and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. I know I saw a lot of like. I think
Ultraman is definitely a visual inspiration.
Ultraman. I know him and Robert Kirkman talked about Ultraman, and then Robert Kirkman was just like asking him about the title of the book, and he's just like, "Why not just ULTRAMEGA?" And he's like, "All right, I guess that's the name of the book."
That's cool. That's cool.
Well, and shout out to Brock who's in the chat, because we ended up watching some old school kaiju like Power Rangers, pre-Power Rangers stuff on his stream, so that was a ton of fun. Just jumped over to a stream on Twitch. You have to throw that in the chat, Brock. I can't remember the name of the stream off the top of my head, but if you like old school Power Rangers stuff and old kaiju, like that stuff was awesome.
Heck yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I just think it's like a really like the time scale. I think we mentioned this in the beginning of the stream, but just like giving this mass event, and then just kind of fast forwarding through all of and this is what happened, and now we're 10 years into the future, however old Noah is now. I'm assuming he's teenage years, so
yeah,
like the way that speeds up and how it's going to tie into things is very interesting.
That's all one book too. All of this happens in one book.
We're just getting to the end of the first issue with this page. With these beefy giant issues.
Yeah.
A lot of story to tell, a lot of world building. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Take note, writers and artists, how you would cover that. I think this and the juxtaposition of this and Murder Falcon week over week are just like crash courses in how to like set up a whole like self-contained world in a single issue.
Yeah. And this is his first writer and artist book too. So I
did not know that.
His I believe he talked with Dan when they went to Japan or something. If I remember correctly, I think him and Dan were talking a lot during Japan. And James Harren just would not put down his sketchbook. He's constantly drawing, making everyone else look bad in the Felix art crew, right?
LOL.
And yeah,
I wonder who's like that.
Yeah, thanks.
But he, I don't know. I guess he just took a lot of notes from Dan, and then, started doing his own thing. I guess that was like the birth of the idea of ULTRAMEGA, especially going on that trip in Japan and stuff. So.
For the viewers at home, Manny is the guy who always has a sketchbook on him.
Oh yeah, sorry.
And will draw
I thought we
constantly. So the fact that Manny called that out as like a cool, unique trait, It just speaks volumes because Manny wouldn't admit to being the guy who's always got a sketchbook out and drawing, but that's what he's doing.
Yeah,
all the
Manny is
time.
definitely Manny's toxic for sure.
You
I
bitch.
just want to also say Noah's in the chat. Hello.
Noah's in the chat.
Yeah, what's
Oh
up,
yeah.
Noah?
No, have you read ULTRAMEGA? This book rips. It's so good.
So something, Manny, we talked about before we started live streaming were some of the other things that James has done.
Oh yeah.
And you mentioned Rumble, which
Yeah.
I've read Rumble. Like that's really good. So if you guys are a fan of James, like go check that out. But for him to do like BPRD as well, just the artwork behind it,
Yeah.
definitely shows just his ability to tell these kind of stories, these monster stories with humanity behind it. And I think I would love to hear just how that helped inform what he wanted to do. But you can definitely tell there's a lot of passion. There's a lot of just, he kind of grew up with this stuff and had a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I think that's most of us that are writers and artists. We grow up loving this stuff, and then we want to be able to tell our own story and pay respect to everything that we grew up with.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is very funny that we heard a lot at Heroes Con last year specifically, like talking to guys like Aaron Conley and Dan and Tyrell Cannon, for those who aren't familiar. And every time we say Dan, we're referring to Daniel Warren Johnson,
Yeah.
one of our favorites.
He's actually the only Dan now.
Yeah, he's just Dan. We're on a first name basis. Me and Dan, we're buddies.
Oh, I didn't
No,
realize
we just
too
got some
because we're
beers one
toxic.
time.
You're toxic, but I guess okay, that's.
No, but one thing that was a kind of common discussion was how James Harren really doesn't like artists who bite his style, because it's iconic and but all of the names we just mentioned, those guys definitely bite his style in the most loving and respectful way. Like Daniel Warren Johnson absolutely gets
Yeah.
I mean, we can argue if it's a chicken or the egg thing, but like Aaron Conley, absolutely. Jake Smith, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tyrell Cannon, like absolutely. Like they all express like, I know I do this and I actively work to not look like I just
Yeah.
rip off James Harren, but like, how can you not?
I
you
mean,
know?
there's interviews with Daniel Warren Johnson, where he was like, James is such a big inspiration to him that he was like, if there was no James, I probably wouldn't be doing comics. And like he took note of him, like with that big inspiration from Japanese art styles and stuff, from manga, especially those crazy speed lines, dynamic action sequences, that crazy silhouette design that he's got going on. Like he's just like, okay, this guy is doing this. This is really cool in comics. I didn't know you could do that. Let me try and do my own way of incorporating those kinds of things. So, I mean, like, but there was various artists back in the day that were taking notes, especially off of Jack Kirby. Like Marvel Comics wouldn't be Marvel without Jack, you know. And a lot of people learned from him, especially John Romita and John Buscema, I believe, too. Steve Ditko.
There are so many artists that like you can list as like, you know, they have their whole school of followers. You know, Frazetta, Toth, fucking Dave Mazzucchelli, like just like these artists who did it, and then like everybody just was like, oh, I want to do that.
Oh, Frank Miller. Frank Miller, I feel like is a big one.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
When he came out, everyone's like, let's go, let's do the Sin City thing, you know?
Yeah.
It is really interesting as for those who don't know, I'm also a lawyer by day, and it's interesting to think of like when I think of style in that way, not just style, but just like even like literally like specific subject matter tropes and things like that. Like I think of it in terms of lineages, you know, like we all kind of came from these lineages that were just forged through interest and taste, you know. But it is interesting from like a quasi legal standpoint of like what does it mean to like yoink somebody's, you know, style or story? I mean, like hell, depending on how you scale it out, like, you know, is kaiju something that is too on the nose? I think most people would say no, right? But it is worth meditating on how things that seem very how do I put this, like distinctive when they come out get so organically entrenched in these lineages because we just care about them so deeply as artists and also as fans, right? That over time they develop their own kind of microcosm, if that makes sense. And now there's like we think about kaiju, not that that's like its own genre, but it kind of is. I mean, there's just so much. There's so much, and they all have something different to offer. But like, if you were to talk to somebody in like 1920 and explain like, oh, there's going to be a whole like media lineage of art and literature that's about really big monsters attacking cities, they'd be like, that's like all the same, that's so derivative. And but we know that it's not now living in the future.
I mean, yeah, there's a few things with that. One is that is like inherently just part of post-modernity. Like, we live in a world where everything is constantly critically analyzed, and so like you're biting influence whether you realize it or not. And I think that's like the core thesis of like postmodern art and thought and philosophy, is like we have the access to all art and philosophical and political movements, so therefore they all inherently influence how we perceive art, politics, philosophy, religion, all of those things. And with art specifically, like, we're all just biting. I mean, that's how you start. Like, Manny started drawing with pictures of Spider-Man. I was there when we were like 11. And like when we started playing music, like we were just covering like Ramones songs and Metallica songs. And you know, when I started writing, I was just like reading Stephen King all the time and like reading Kurt Vonnegut all the time. And that's just like exactly who I was biting off when I was writing my own short stories in high school.
Yeah.
Like,
which also a big fan of comics, that Stephen King guy. So
Stephen King is the man.
Yep.
I'll say this about Stephen King. I actually don't think he's like one of the greatest writers to ever lived. I just think he like writes the best pulp. It's just so fun.
I think he would agree with you, actually.
Yeah.
I think he said as much in various ways. But yeah, I definitely think it's like a post-modernity thing, a post/transmodernity thing, where like, how do we create meaning when everything under the sun's been made? And by the way, I actually think that each of us can answer that. And so we look at ULTRAMEGA and we look at it, and yes, if I were to talk to somebody about this book, you know, it's funny how even in our synopses, at the very top of this chat, we described this as like basically body horror Power Rangers, and it's like, but it's like we're doing that a bit tongue in cheek, knowing that doesn't fully capture the story, but it's enough of an entry point for other people to be like, okay, I get the vibes. I know what clothes to wear when I'm sitting down to read this, you know, or whatever. I know what whiskey to drink. But fundamentally, I think the reason why I've been having fun reading it as we're going along is it's awesome, and it's awesome in its own right. Right? It is done, and we can sit here and well, we are sitting here and critiquing, but like we can sit here and kind of extrapolate why. But my guess is, myself being an artist, and I bet you guys would agree with this, is like the difference between pure derivativeness in the pejorative sense and derivativeness in this kind of lineage sense that we're talking about, that we're copying, mimicking artists that we loved and we move forward, is that it's not even that we're saying something new, it's that we're saying something, right? The point is not the derivation, the point is the expression, and then we are coming from the groundwork that has been laid before us, and we're speaking from that. We're not speaking from an abyss, right? We're speaking from things that have been said before.
Well, yeah, totally. Your perspective matters in that regard. Like, you know, we've all seen Jaws and read, you know, It or whatever, and like taken all these influences, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing for you to chew up all those influences and spit them out via your perspective. And like that is like the unique aspect to it and the value gained. Like, there's also a merit to repetition and like constant marinating and like meditating on stuff. Like, I didn't, like, when I was a kid and the first time I saw like a gorgeous sunset, I didn't think to myself, well, I can check that off. I saw a sunset, and every subsequent sunset I've ever witnessed has been shitty. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got something out of every sunset in North Carolina. We have very beautiful ones. You know, and you feel it every single time. I can read every Stephen King book back to back to back and get something new out of it every single time. because yeah, it's like a scare and it's pulp and it's fun, but it's like I want to read a story, I want to be scared. Like we can watch the same movies over and over again, you know, shit like that. Like I don't know, me and Manny watched the Snyder Cut twice while we lived together. You know what I mean? Like we got something out of it each time. Like
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything bad about repetition.
That really did it for me, by the way. Just the idea of you guys watching the Snyder Cut together, it's really hot.
Yeah,
I
the regular
fucking love the
version, or
Snyder
like
Cut.
the director's
too.
cut version, right? The Snyder Cut version,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
the
yeah.
black and white
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if I'm gonna watch it twice, I'm gonna watch the other version of it. You know, I'm not
right.
weird.
Oh, I felt Sam there. I could just feel the bromance.
Oh, it's me and Manny are going on. How old are we now? 29.
Yeah.
Going on 18 years of bromance.
Yeah.
So,
It's a beautiful thing, and we love that we're just drinking the juice of that.
that's right. Drink my juice.
I do not agree with that metaphor.
It's too late
Because
actually.
we drink
so,
the juices
yeah.
of masculinity together, shirtless.
Yep.
Yeah.
While playing volleyball
That's right.
in a movie with Tom Cruise. All right.
To the danger zone.
I wondered last week how we could go 3 hours, and now I remember.
We're not always talking about comics. We're talking about heteronormative behavior.
Hey guys.
Yeah, but back to Ultramega.
Yeah, back to ULTRAMEGA.
Because that's what we're here for. I mean, technically, the Twitch category is just chatting. I think that's what we're doing. We've got 7 viewers in the chat. Chat, how you doing? Kisses and hugs. Mouthbreathers loves you.
I did ask them like if they've got any kaiju books that they would recommend, because you know it's one thing for us to sit here and talk about stuff we love, but I'm also curious about things that they love, because I'm like, I don't know, I've got bookshelf space somewhere, or I'll make bookshelf space.
Yeah, I'll buy another bookshelf.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I think opening this format up, should this format be successful for us, is something I'd be really interested in exploring. Like, you know, having people make suggestions for us to analyze on stream would be a lot of fun. Right now, we've just been kind of leaning on books that we all own and therefore all have read once, know, and love. But it would be a lot of fun to talk about new stuff as well. Yeah, which after this stream, we'll have to decide on our next book. But before we talk about the next book, let's talk about the book that I'm holding in my hand, ULTRAMEGA. Guys, how we doing?
Oh, yeah.
I love this depiction of the Big Bang on this page.
Yep.
That I've had open for like 10 minutes while we were chatting about post-modernity. It's very Kirby inspired, like especially when we turn the page and you see the planets and, you know, the crackle. There's some crackle going on. Not a lot, but a little bit. Just a kiss.
I have the most basic bro hard-on for depictions of the Big Bang. It's just my favorite.
Oh heck yeah.
Yeah.
I'm right
I
there
love
with
creation myths.
Yeah, same as these.
Yeah, just gorgeous. The beginning, like I love these cubes that crack open like eggs. I think that's such a great image. And like as soon as ULTRAMEGA is born, you know, we're really taking a step back to the beginning of the universe. The creation of the ULTRAMEGA also leads to the creation of the kaiju, kind of permanently weaving their fates together forever. And the evolution of the ULTRAMEGA and like how they move planet to planet across the universe, fighting kaiju. It's so cool. Look at these pages. I mean, this is like, yeah, this is when we just get to sit back and look at James Harren be cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is just cool shit.
Just his creature designs alone are amazing, and just his shape design too. Like he's able to make a forest in just 2 values, white and black, with the sun or like with the moons and stuff, and then just goes hard on those creatures.
Here's a question I have for y'all on this page when we get the eyeball guy. I don't think he has a name. This is the eyeball he plucked out of himself, right? That's just kind of been wandering for 10, 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Looking for the warrior.
Yep. That's him.
It's not like explicitly mentioned, but I'm assuming that's the connection just because you see him rip it out of his chest.
Yeah. It's great. Find someone else worthy or better.
Yeah, the heart of a warrior. Yeah, next to the beating heart of a warrior and battle everlasting. And oh, what a panel. Crunch. This punch is so good. The motion blur, the speed lines, the fracture of the glasses. It is so cool.
You feel that, that's for sure. It kind of reminds me of like Eric Larson. I know Eric Larson does a lot of like really cartoony punches to where the face will be like a flat piece of paper in like Savage Dragon and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that.
Oh, see, I take it to like Chris Bocciolo, and I absolutely love some of his punches, especially he's done quite a few of them in like Spider-Man, and so it's cool seeing the impact. And I love that you can see the ripples and the movement of the cloth and shattering the glass. So cool.
That's great.
Yeah, and the speed lines as he gets thrown back.
Yeah.
All of these little inclusions, like you can't really tell here, but on this page, but the just the halftone screen, just kind of in this, just to add that little bit of texture to this background here, just like works. It's not on any of the other panels. Just really funny. I like that a lot. Yeah, he injects a lot of humor into like these kind of bumbling kaiju cultists. You get a little bit of the kaiju cult versus people warring tribes in the desert wasteland of post-apocalypse ULTRAMEGA world. And then this guy Gara. Oh, so
Gara looks so amazing. Yeah. I love his design, and unfortunately we don't get much more of him, which I'm very sad about, but he just looks amazing. And this is where I'll say again, I don't have a lot of things that I have bad to say about it, but another confusing part is we get a flashback here on the right-hand page. Mm-hmm. So this is Noah as he's growing up, and it was one of his protectors. But just, again, the body horror when it comes to the human element, I mean, he has just ran through so many times. And looking at his arm, like, of course, they try to blur out some of it, or not. James tries to, I guess, scale it back a little bit. But his arm looks like an accordion.
Yeah.
Like, that's how sliced up he is.
Yeah. It's like with that movie Green Room, you know?
Oh, God, that scene is so fucked up.
Yeah. That's what I think of when I look at that arm.
Yeah, that's after the pipples like bite it, right?
Yeah, something like that. Or
shotgun blast. That movie is pure gore. It's so good. Highly recommend. Yeah, but Gara, I like Gara as kind of this bait and switch villain though. Like they make him look really scary and imposing, and they add all this, supposed authority he has, and he looks like kind of like a kaiju, so you think he's a kaiju. And then it's really just to illustrate, I don't know, that willingness in man to follow the leader and really just like align yourself with power in a situation where you have none. Like the way that like this whole kaiju cultist group joins amongst the kaijus because humanity has left them no hope or option. Like it's commentary. That's like kind of this whole the nihilism and cynicism commentary that I think is really like baked into this book. Is what happens once the world ends and like how do people react in crisis.
Yeah.
That would never happen.
No way.
We would never side with our oppressors. Name one time in history that's happened. And like almost accidentally killing Noah was like, a big bungle. But then we get the bait and switch that's not actually Noah. It's a robot being controlled by Noah. Yeah. I love that too. I love that inclusion. You think it's him the whole time, especially when he has that memory. You think, oh, this is him.
Yeah.
And nope, the robot head pops up.
Yeah.
It explodes.
I remember reading that when he gets shot in the face with those thorn things, and I'm just like, what? Who's the protagonist
of this story?
Yeah. We've killed another one, everybody. I agree. That bait and switch was great.
Yeah.
And then just him in his underwear.
Yeah, it's
just
white
like, this is what the
tighties.
future is actually going to be like.
Yeah.
Is my theory for the future is that we're all going to be in VR pods, but like with like
Hanging out in the-
catheters and like slow drip IVs that just like are full of chemicals that make you feel like you're coming all the time. Like that's what I think the future is going to be like.
Oh, so
Feel good.
Wally. That's
Yeah.
Wally.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Wall-E and the Matrix, but with much more cum.
Dude, man, Kev, have you read Tokyo Ghost?
No, I have like 3 volumes of it sitting on my like shelf that I need to read.
All right. Well, I have a feeling you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
I really liked Punk Rock Jesus, and I really like all of Sean Murphy's White Knight stuff. So I have a feeling I'm gonna like it. But,
Oh yeah.
which I need to read the Beyond the White Knight. I never got that. I was waiting for the trade on that.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Talk about cool cards. I know we were talking about that last week. Yeah, the inclusion of Beth. You know, these
Who's a
protectors. Who's a blonde? Where? And we don't have any other context, right? There was no Beth in the beginning. I'm not
No.
missing anything.
No.
This is just Beth.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just Beth. Yep.
Just Beth. I mean, she's great.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if there was another detail that I missed.
Oh,
Um,
I tell you, did they show it recently? Yeah, you end up finding out Beth has, she's augmented human.
Yeah.
How would you?
There's-
She
she
has a
like
robot
shoots.
foot.
She like shoots off one of her limbs, right?
It's her foot, so she can do like a super kick or something. It's hilarious. Again, James isn't like diving in and exploring the humor of it all, but there are little parts like that that are just out of nowhere, and that's what I think lends to a lot of the levity and how funny it is.
She's got robot feet. Because her other foot's all robotic too. It's both of them.
Did we lose Kev?
I'm still here. I'm just packing.
Um,
Noah mentioned in chat that he heard Kaiju Max is good, and I looked it up. I think it's by Xander Cannon.
Yeah, I've heard Kaiju Max. I was actually listening to Off Panel this week, and that came as a very strong recommendation on Off Panel.
nice.
Which, shout out to David Harper of Sketch.com. Off Panel is one of the best comics podcasts I've ever heard in my life.
Yep.
Subscribe to his Patreon, give his blog money. He rocks.
It's true.
I also am all up in his DMs pretty much every week. And he's a sweet man. You know, when you just like, this is one thing that I didn't really think about in social media until like now, was particularly just with comics, because in my head, like comics people, like my favorite comics artists and writers, they're like superheroes, they're like rock stars, like A-listers, and they are like not even remotely mainstream in the slightest. And like most of them, if you just reach out to them on social media, they'll just answer because they're just like dudes, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, they're just hanging out.
they're just hanging out. Like the amount of people I've just like said like, you know, a little quippy joke or just been like, looks great, man, to like a piece of art that I see in a story, and then they just like will reply.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? You can't do that to Drake. You can't do that to
No.
Nicki Minaj.
Oh, maybe with that attitude, but no, I know what you mean, and I think we forget that, you know, because this is our lives, you know, like art, and I think that we forget that like the people that we consider idols, you know, some of them actually are, you know, really well known, but
Yeah.
a lot of them are not, and not to the mainstream. It's like, I just was speaking to, it's not someone that I would have considered an idol, but definitely someone who has a pretty popular art following. Reached out to him, and I was like, hey, you know, think your stuff's great. You know, if you ever have any time, if you can point me to some resources on ZBrush, he's a sculptor, and he like literally spent an entire morning like sending me like 20 links to different resources.
Oh my god.
Like, yeah, and I like, he doesn't know me from anyone, and he was just like, here's a artist who wants my help, so I'm gonna help him.
I mean, same thing with Tyrell Cannon. I just reached out to him asking questions about just like shipping and like, setting up files or whatever, just indie art stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then he sent me a whole essay. I feel like I probably talked about that in the last stream that we did, but I mean, all you got to do is just ask, and most of these people are like, I know what it was like when I was at that level, and I appreciated it when someone else helped, and that's.
I think it's that. I think it's paying it forward, but I think part of it's like they're also nerds like us. If I can love talking about this shit.
Yeah.
They totally do. Like the prevailing sentiment that we got like at Heroes Con and like any con we've ever done and like talked to people we would consider like heroes. Like the attitude we were always treated with was never like, oh, you're a kid and you'll figure it out one day. It was, oh no, we're peers.
Yeah.
Like you're also a comics artist. You're also a writer. Like I'm just gonna talk to you like we are peers and like give you, my 2 cents and tell you where I'm at and stuff like that. And then, that goes a long way. That, make me feel like we're doing the right things and
Yeah.
I do want to say with some people, maybe it's out of like an attention span or also they're just trying to calibrate who you are, but they do need a bit of an entry level thing of like, what are you about? Did you just get started? With you guys, it's like all you need to do is look at Renown to be like, oh, these guys are serious. Like, man, you and I talked about that as sort of like, oh, that's a real comic. You guys are real comic.
That was what the guys at Acme said to us. They were like, oh, this is actually good. We were like, oh, yeah, like whatever. And he's like, no, like we get people bring comics to us all the time. This is really good.
It's like it's like on a napkin, which like God bless, they're still comic artists, but it's you guys are actually legit.
Well, it's also like the caliber of like, we did like Free Comic Book Day and like have popped in for different things there, and we're just like, oh yeah, you want a free comic book? And we hand them the Red Ranger 8-pager, and they hand us back like a Xerox copied like 4-pager thing with black and white ink, and I was like, oh yeah, we are doing something different, aren't we, man?
Yeah, I just I don't know. I just thought like once you get that kind of book in your hands, you're like, okay, I'm gonna take these guys a little seriously, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Or like, and then the nicest artists are like, they would have taken you seriously anyway, but I think maybe they're used to calibrating lower, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Like they're used to like talking to people at a much lower level, and it's like, oh, okay, no, I can talk to you. Like, I think with my portfolio, especially because I have a day job as a freaking sellout lawyer, I think when people hear that I also do art, they're like, oh, sure, it's just a hobby. Then they look at my portfolio like, oh, nope, never mind. And then they can talk shop with me at a higher level.
Yep. It's great.
I love that all my friends are so handsome and talented.
Wait, no. This is Sam. So I
said what I said.
I'm the gay charity case for the.
I'm just gonna stay quiet and take the compliment. That's the nicest thing anybody said to me all day.
Said what I said.
How is it like to like be secure in yourself? Very strange.
Very strange.
I think I'm sick and I don't want to waste more words.
Same.
Just looking at going back to ULTRAMEGA, like looking at those pages again, the more of the like that mundaneness, just the grace. But I think at this point in the story, like we've been through some shit together, right? As the reader, and there's creepiness even throughout this, especially throughout this perchance. Like this, so I think I lost the thread. Who is this creepy little person?
So this is like... Noah. This is actually the son of the main guy in the beginning. What was his name again? Steve? Not Steve.
Oh shit.
I wouldn't put it past. See, that's the one thing that I struggle with is James does have an amazing way to continue a story and keep things moving, but I often struggle to remember characters' names.
Jason.
Noah is really the only one I remember because we spend 3 books on.
Yeah, and I think that was deliberate. Like I think that like that again, the feeling of the bait and switch and going, oh, this is actually what this story's about. Like, but this is also not a book about character. This is a book about like ideas and world building. Because like there's so much time spent to kind of the overworld. Like, I mean, I don't know how I'd feel if someone talked to me about my books this way, but like there's so much like philosophy and like political ideology and like just general like cynicism and nihilism like that just seeps into this book. Like it's not a book that has a positive outlook on things at all, despite it having the "you have the heart of a warrior" kind of like idea to it. Like there's no optimism on any single panels. Like you don't, and that's not the energy that keeps you going. You're not like, are we gonna make it? You're like, oh god, what happens next?
Yeah.
Like that is like very much like the attitude I had while reading this. I loved it, but Jesus, it is brutal.
Yeah. But the Noah's dad is Jason.
Jason, that is correct.
Yep. Big head.
Yep. Noah and Beth are the first two characters I feel like we really actually like care about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel really sorry for Beth because like she gets now Noah, he's the main guy. We're gonna watch him really endeavor to be the hero, but poor Beth, she is like the I'm gonna steal another anime reference. She's like the Bulma from Dragon Ball, where she's left in all these situations with these super powered creatures, but she is really the human element between them and the rest of the world. So
yes, and Noah is kind of your Goku character. In first iteration of Dragon Ball, we're not quite to Z.
As long as we don't get to GT, I think we'll be okay.
I have no comment. God, I love this. Just this panel of like, I guess it's like a nightmare. Like this page where like Gara is dying, and then Noah's sleeping, and then like he has.
Yeah, once again, I couldn't figure this out because we'll get a thing at the end where it's uh-oh, did I do something wrong? And we see in this dream sequence that Noah goes ultra mega, destroys one of the weird things, and then starts eating the corpses of like these other dead kaiju. Right? It's bizarre.
And it's like somehow, and then it goes back to what's his name, Seth, getting killed.
Dude, and that, like, if that's the finishing blow for Seth, it's like, how much more can that guy really endure? He was dead in the panel that we saw, and he gets, like, a knife through the back of the head and out the mouth.
Yeah, and all we really maybe we'll have more Seth time in later stories. If they ever come out, James. I'm serious.
How many issues are there so far? Is it just
there's 4, and they released all in 2021, 2022 maybe.
I think it was 2021.
So this one volume, this trade volume this is the only one.
This is it. It very much ends on a cliffhanger. There's not been a single announcement of when the next issue is coming out.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, we don't get a ton of vehicles in here from James, or it's not kind of forced or lingered on, but that bottom right, that's the first one that I remember seeing, and I'm like, man, this feels so much like Dragon Ball. Like, it feels like an Akira Toriyama vehicle. Just compact, small, like, bulgy tires. It feels lived in, but then still has, like, this otherworldly feel.
Totally. I mean, the Japanese key trucks, I love these things, man. I want one for myself. They're so rad, these tiny trucks. Mm-hmm. They're so sick. Then back to the organic city skylines, everything is off certain angles, falling into the earth. Things are rounded and look like they're breathing, like it's weird. Fucking rad. And then we get more vehicles, more of these. I agree. Toriyama, I think there's like a little bit of like ankle kind of Mobius vibes to these vehicles as well.
Yeah.
There's great scene setting. Like I like that he really takes the time to, for issues that are over 40, like that are basically 40 pages long. Like he's slowing down with this part of the story, like letting the world building like really start to happen, and like kind of character introductions, motivations, broader worldview stuff. I love this guy with the hammer made out of a kaiju molar.
Yeah.
Even though he immediately fucks Noah over.
Yeah.
It's so funny. But like this, this molar in the side of a building that they dig out and turn into this hammer. It's so cool. And I'm assuming that's also what this is here. This guy's hammer when he's got the blood snot spewing out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm
love
pretty
this
sure that's
too.
a flashback to Seth. Like, Seth and this dude were buddies.
Yeah.
And again, I wish it was kind of called out a little bit more overtly so you could see just how devastating the upcoming turn is. But the way I read it is, you know, this guy had a lot of battles with Seth. Like, really believed in what they were doing, felt like, hey, we're kicking butt, we can protect humanity. And then we, of course, saw what happened to Seth, and I think that definitely makes the guy kind of think twice. Is it really worth protecting Noah for what he is or what they think he's going to be? I don't know if you guys get the same read like that, but that's kind of my take on it.
No, I definitely do. Yeah. There's history here. God, I love this sequence of the food rations dropping from a plane. That, like, you know, this implies that there's a government and there is like a national presence, but we've just been left to dry, and like this is how we get our food delivered. It's a year's worth of rations just all dumped at once.
It's like, all right, come and get it.
The truce is broken. The treaty is broken. The Kaiju clan gets to claim the rations because the humans have shed blood, first blood. And the Kaiju clan is like, well, we're first blood part 2. Why isn't the second Rambo movie called Second Blood? Anyway. It doesn't ring off the tongue. I mean, what are they up to now? Seventh Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
21st Blood.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's just rad. It's just rad. Oh, come on, webcam. There you go. Get the focus back.
Zap.
More trucks. More kaijus. I love this little baby kaiju in the belly.
Oh, yeah. At last.
We return to the kingdom. There's a line that happens a few times, and I know it comes up later, so if I can't find it now, I'll just do it then, but it just kills me. I'll point it out when we see it, because the reveal is too good. But anyway, yeah, this giant pit. This is the pit where the kaiju was first born, you know, the sun emerged from.
Yeah.
In the first issue. Like these great callbacks, just like tying the whole world together, and then here's the fist. Severed fist is so good.
Yeah.
Just like from ULTRAMEGA in the first issue. Like, way to tie it all back together.
Yeah.
We've got our guy hiding. Yeah, it ends on a downer note. You know, this is your Empire Strikes Back ending. He gets betrayed fully, and you're like, oh shit, this sucks. And then on to the next issue.
Yeah.
It's like great pacing. Really just increasing stakes is what I'd say.
That's great. Really good. And then we get this little creep just running around.
Yeah, it's the son.
Issue.
I do good, mother.
I do good.
I do good. Be big again soon.
Gosh, she looks so gross.
Well, I like, you know, this issue also does a great job of explaining, like, what people have done, and then this is, like, how the kaijus have evolved. And, like, what's going on there. And then just him waking up in the Coliseum, like, fighting pits is so rad, with the ULTRAMEGA head collapsed around his neck.
Which is, like, a callback to his dad right there. What?
Yeah.
Almost.
Definitely.
Can I tell you how much of like a Squid Games feel? Squid Games kind of made it their own, but looking at this now, I just get more of a feeling of that. It's like, wow, that's really cool to see just how he kind of interpreted that and made it a very cruel game show almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all high fantasy and sci-fi stories have to have a Colosseum arc. It is just the law. We love that shit. Renown has got one in development currently because we just love Colosseum stuff. Which, Ben, by the way, I have a pitch for you, but we'll talk about that off stream. It doesn't. It's not the Colosseum one. Manny's got dibs on the Colosseum one, but I have a pitch for you. Yeah, and then Beth getting like abducted by the kaiju's.
Well,
like
did you run past the dude that had like the cool devil mask earlier?
Gara, yeah.
Gara, like you kind of see what's going on with him, and it's like, holy smokes, he's definitely worse for wear.
Yeah. I couldn't tell if this was also supposed to, if this was all just like because he's dying, if it had any like drug addiction implications.
I was wondering too.
You know, if he's like hooked on the supply. I love this. I love the sultry Burt Reynolds pose on this guy.
Yeah.
They're all like half naked in a bed of skulls. Is this supposed to be more of them, or is that just supposed to be skulls?
I think it's
I
skulls.
can read that either way. It's funny with either explanation, so that's great art. Yeah, him spooled out, passed out, dying, and they're just talking about how they're going to loot his corpse. It's
Yeah,
like
we should just take his stuff.
Like, but he's still breathing.
Yeah, and you know, we go back to Beth, and she's been abducted by kaiju's. They've got such stupid names.
Yeah.
Steve, Francine, Crabfist, Sally.
You get a really funny scene with Crabfist, which is why I think he's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're making the kaiju robots, and then Crabfist, I'll fucking kill you, and then he's just tiny.
Because she calls him little.
You're so little. And then this giant, kaiju robot is rad. More Evangelion. Like, yeah.
You could just
it's great.
Feel like the anime happening when he gets caught before he like lunges at her, you know? And then while he's moving around, you could just hear the I'll kill you.
It's like, you know, that the perspective is great because he looks giant with this like forced perspective, you know, the claw being huge in the foreground and then just tiny taking up barely a third of the next panel is great.
James is breaking rules right now too, like or not even, he's just finding a way to do it. He's not drawing the truck, the bed truck or anything in the background. It's just speed lines, dudes jumping, make it look intense. You know, we've already established where they're at, and then boom. I
think it's just a great coloring call because, you know, the yellow and the orange to kind of make that blue of the crab really pop. It's just great.
Warm against cool.
And just the kaiju people. They're just so disgusting. This is one of my favorite panels in the book right here. Him turning in, behold the human, a hairy gateway, a sweaty chrysalis, birthing our pure spirits into this filthy human world. And it's just like,
no,
the most vile transformation I've ever seen. So goofy, so gross at the same time. And then, you know, explaining. Oh yeah, go ahead, Manny.
Oh no, it was just a businessman, you know, just forming.
This reminds me of like John Kay, like Ren and Stimpy style shit.
Oh yeah,
like,
That's perfect. It's so cartoony.
No,
they're in this whole sequence where this other kaiju is like also being put to death in the fighter pits, and he just takes his own life and just slices down his giant
nope.
neck.
What a swerve! What a great swerve! I was like, oh, he's Ab Noah. Nope.
Joke. Gargle.
Let the games begin.
It's like, oh well, yeah, time to move on.
Yeah.
Welcome to the ULTRAMEGA Coliseum. You know, these very obvious like Nazi banners with the kaiju cult stuff.
Yeah.
Just like comparing these like parasitic aliens to fascists is just a great little touch. and the fact that the city is small to make the normal sized people feel big.
Yeah.
Because all the kaijus are tiny. It's
So
so funny.
funny.
Yeah. You get the leader in the back, your Jabba the Hutt character. You know, this makes me think of Jabba's palace super hard.
Yeah. Oh, the announcer is so funny. Jeez. Look at that face.
He reminds me of Salacious Crumb.
Yes,
Just-
exactly.
I can hear that same laugh as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually listening to Jizz in the Max Rebo band. Kaiju gladiators, your king calls on you to meet your enemy. And the kaijus come out and they're like, not that much larger. Yeah. I mean, such good comedy here. Strax, Rip Bash, and Boosh. As just like this innocuous little like larva. It's just like the dainty little arms.
He looks so like he doesn't look like he can do much, but
And that they're setting you up for it too. Like that's what's coming. I read that from a mile away.
I was like, what is he gonna do?
The big tough guy who gets his sword and shield.
Yep.
Like,
There's another piece of comedy in this too that we get later on, because you find out that these monsters also have relationships.
Yeah, that's right. Isn't Boosh like his wife or something?
Yeah.
Boosh and Strax are, they're thing.
And then this giant tentacle. Schlork. So good.
Oh man, that's awesome.
The terror in the eyes in this bottom panel. It is so good.
And then the sweat.
Yeah.
He's like, oh god, and then just farts it all out, man. It just shits everywhere.
The shit is so good.
All the bones and detritus.
I love that all that Boosh says is Boosh.
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 This panel just made me think too. Like when I was reading this book, there were so many moments like this that made me just laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Just like, this is so fucked up. I love this so much. Holy shit! Like just dying. I loved it.
It's beautiful.
Oh my god! And the crowd goes wild, and the other Ultra Mega guy is puking, and Strax just annihilates him. He's just running away. It's so good.
God.
He does not stand quite a chance at all.
We don't even.
I mean, we already knew he wasn't, right? But he definitely.
We don't see the fight. We just see him grab him, and then he's just devouring him.
Yeah.
Like we don't need any more context. Compelling. Two prodigious powers clashed. Only one fated to see the sunset. Next. I choose Rip Spawn, Rip Bash, and then this is the moment where we realize we finally have the heart of a warrior. And we get into a fight. And the fight is rad.
Yeah.
I think there's also a great character moment for Noah when he sees the dude like just laying there completely
Just like
Yeah,
Wow.
Gara's done.
Yeah.
oh yeah, he's done. And he grabs one of the spikes, he's like, I'll just finish him. And then again, another hero moment, right? I'm gonna spend some time with an enemy of mine who did me wrong. And then dude, the hero's moment where you stand your ground.
Yeah.
And then, the I see a weakness. This very anime moment with the eyes and the scan lines.
Yeah.
And then he throws the spear, and it misses Rip Bash. Goes straight into Boosh.
Tear.
Boosh
Just
says-
one single tear. Boosh.
Boosh is
Again,
so
it doesn't
good.
not overt. They're so subtle. Love it.
It's just flattened on the building. Boosh.
Deflated like a basketball.
Gurgle.
So good. And then when he looks, the king is gone. I love this panel of the king flying in with these wing kaijus, and he's got two holding them up.
Yep.
This is just hilarious. And then he sets him down, and he's the same size as Noah. This is like such a good little touch.
Brother verse brother.
And just the disgusting like leftover blood that's just like caked on the front of the king. It's so nasty. But of course, just when you thought like the body horror couldn't get enough, Mom comes back. Oh my god.
Oh,
I love that. This is straight out of Dark Souls. Like, this is so scary.
Oh, yeah.
I love this design. Oh my god. You get the crowd shots of kaijus reacting like, oh my god, it's the mama.
Like,
yeah.
what?
I mean, this is literally like straight out of Elden Ring. Like, this is so scary.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then boom, you've been playing games. And then what does Noah do? He saves Gara.
Yeah.
At the cost of basically half of his body.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Return of the Jedi. Holy smokes.
There's
Empire Strikes Back.
Boosh, my light and love, you took her, you demon. The kaiju refers to a human as a demon. It's just funny. Ultra mega kick, and then he just like breaks his leg doing it. The bone is sticking out of his leg here. Just so brutal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then that thumb.
Oh, yeah, the chunk missing out of him in this panel is vile.
Yeah.
Once again,
the red
like,
silhouette.
what the heck? Who's the hero? Like, I thought Noah was our hero. What the?
Right. Again,
Such a great cliffhanger.
What am I reading?
Yeah.
Good news, warrior. Your sycophant is safe. Bad news, you are dying. He has a little first aid kit.
His torn off foot stood up, like, away from him in the ground.
In the foreground.
And then sick gods and glorious battle. And then, what is our little tag here in the trade is Boosh. It's just hilarious. I love Boosh. Rest in peace, Boosh.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P.
And then what do? We take a scale back. We go back into the cosmos. We take a back seat. We go into the Autumn ULTRAMEGA dimension. See if we can get some guidance from the gods above. And then, yes, this is my favorite line in the book. It happens a couple times up until this point, but it happens again here. When this little, like, weird bug kaiju is being carried on the back of this kaiju clan member. He says, my cloaca throbs. Which is just so gross. For those of you who don't know, a cloaca is the reproductive organ of reptiles. They have one gland that is both their, like, excretion and sexual reproductive organ, much like how we have genitals. That is what that is for reptiles. A cloaca.
And birds.
Yeah. My cloaca throbs. So good. It's like a joke that was written just for me, Like, I just love that so much. And then the body horror of the mother again. Like, more body horror, more grotesqueness. It's awesome. And, what a page turn. Look, I just want to look at that a few times.
Just anime.
It comes out and then shoots across the screen.
Awesome. She looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Turn and you see her like shed that weird looking skin of hers, and she's like, oh, now we're back in almost that devil goddess thing. Like, there's a monster arm draped over her like a or maybe there's little squiddy things for capes and hair. I don't know. She just looks amazing. I love all that.
The giant arms is
Yeah.
rad. But you still see her coming out of the thing that she was just in. Like, this, so much detail to focus on, just stare at here in this single panel.
And just like the backgrounds too. on the next page, we start going into that, and then you just see the caked over blood on these buildings and stuff. Like we're still, or at least referencing that kind of thing. And it's like
and then those cube-shaped cubes. What are those? And then they're the cosmic eggs, ovum of the void, and he cracks it open like an egg.
Yeah.
And there's a little ULTRAMEGA inside. It's so good. Like a yolk.
There's an ULTRAMEGA. It looks like a kaiju, right?
Yeah, the kaiju
showing
maggots are growing inside of it. And we get that image, and then the page turn is we're back in kaiju land. And these are such funny character designs. They're so good.
Ball
the tick-tock of the clock. Yeah, the ball chin. This just the stick bug and just...
She's just sitting there with these monsters and they're sipping tea. You can just hear it.
Has no idea what to do. What do I do?
And then immediately, contrast that with, moons and suns and stars and a planet and speed lines and all this chaos and enormity of scale. And,
Gosh. I love that.
Autumn ULTRAMEGA is dead. He's got maggots growing in his face.
It's so gross. I love it.
And is that Moon? Yeah, the Moon is the queen. That's like a giant hive of kaijus. Kaiju maggots. I love this panel so much.
I can see so much left to discuss because I don't want to ruin the end of the book, but there's so much more that's being built here. You're like, oh my gosh, there's a problem with the fact that the maggots have now infected even the protectors.
Yeah.
Even the last hope of humanity. Looks like there's truly only one. Another crystallized eye. Still don't get the eye thing, but...
Take this.
Windows to the soul and all that.
Save yourself.
And eyes are gross. Yeah. Jumping back through the void. Oh my god.
So much explosions in her body. Oh, you're on that perfect, Glarg, whatever, in that left hand, where, oh man, just exploding with vomit and viscera. All the maggots raining down. So nasty, but
book
so
is
cool.
Gross. It's so gross. It's so rad, but it's disgusting.
Man.
Your puniness. My immensity, does it slow you?
No, I just need a quick break.
Then boom, kicks the door in, they're drinking tea. The war starts today. They just keep calling her the builder. Plug in my cube. Okay. And I don't know about y'all, but I really did sincerely try to read this tiny text panel where they're just muttering in the distance.
Oh yeah, same.
I really tried to read it. I couldn't. I was like, I guess that's the point. Because
his rat's already eating his body and stuff.
And they merge as one.
Yep.
Dude, I had a legit... I felt sick to my stomach when I see the rat just eating Noah. Oh my gosh.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
More body horror, more grossness.
Truly.
Ultimately, obviously I'm keeping up the pace a little bit now because we're fading a little bit and this has been going on for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, this is all just to build up to the fight. They go in their union of ULTRAMEGA-ness.
ULTRAMEGA.
Look at me now, Mom. Look at me now. But then when ULTRAMEGA shows up, all the kaijus finally have something to shock them back to life. And they explode and scale.
Yeah. Can we get just one last thing of comedy before we get into that? You have the giant robot armor that's being piloted by the King Kaiju, as he calls himself. And it's just this fun stomp. He gets all the way over to this wall and is going to destroy the wall with the mech. Arms right up. and you just fall to the ground. It's like plunk. Utter failure because he's not able to yet get back to what he was. But yeah, as soon as ULTRAMEGA shows up, then apparently showing that symbiotic connection between ULTRAMEGA and the kaiju, this prompts the kaiju to explode in size.
He just says, "Whoops."
Yeah, whoops.
And then boom, kaiju's ULTRAMEGA, the final fight. It's lit. It's super. It's sick. It's piss. It's revolting. It's insulting. This fight is rad. Not too much to purely analyze in this fight. It's just fucking cool. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum.
Ultra.
Fighting.
Just once again showing the fight that even in the fight, the ULTRAMEGA isn't infallible, and you know, I think he gets a couple limbs broken. Oh, the weird tentacle monster again. Unfortunately, that's the worst one.
Yeah.
I don't think you're at that part yet, Kev, but it's the green wormy one.
Yeah, that's ULTRAMEGA kryptonite is tentacles and worms. Yeah, it's the fact that it just jumps right on his head. It's so good here.
Just poisons
it's so
him
funny.
immediately.
Yeah, the shot where in his eye. Oh.
In his eye. Holy smokes.
And I mean, just like for something that's just like this big kaiju, like I love James Harren's distress and pain expressions when the ULTRAMEGA are fighting. Like it is truly like you know, you feel it. The crack to the glass over the eye and the swelling. And then more fighting.
Oh, I guess we did get another funny part.
Yeah.
When the green monsters has the stinger still stuck in ULTRAMEGA's eye, the text is "Taste my venom sting." It's got the SHT and the SHT and the sting. It's just like he's lisping because tongue stuck in his eyeball.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, we get some good humor here as well too. You know, this guy comes charging at ULTRAMEGA and he just misses completely. Just boom, splat. Yeah, this is great. And then turns out Beth was actually creating a system for her to pilot the mech herself, basically, and she just takes over. Bam, boom, wham. Now she's in control. Is there a person in there? Thank you. And then out comes Beth. And of course, we have to save Beth, which we do. Doom. A new ULTRAMEGA. Where have you been? Oh shit. Oh shit. And then, bam, of course, we lose a foot again. Snap. That foot breaking.
Oh,
that's disgusting.
And he's fat, too. He's just a big fat mess now.
Much less imposing.
Yeah.
Yeah, great fighting. Please tell me there's more. And then the firing off the hand is so rad. Call back to the beginning.
Yep.
Loses his hand, fires that thing off, and just boom, yoinkity sploinks the head right off of this guy. And that panel right there, and choosing to go just all white with the background is like rad.
It's great.
It's so cool. And then we're just back to just Noah. He's shrunken down.
Missing a foot and a hand.
Yep.
And then boom, the head hits the ground. My son, my God, it's been so long. You didn't bond with it, did you?
It's like,
You mean how we just conquered the enemies? And yeah, and that's all we have of ULTRAMEGA.
James,
waiting so long. Waiting for this moment.
There have been so many things I've seen on like the Felix art page and like on images like Instagram where basically they like post like ULTRAMEGA commissions and like alt covers that James Harren has done, and I get so excited for a second because I'm like, is it happening? And then I look and it's like Ultra Mega commissioned by Jason Harren, sold at auction for blah blah blah, and I'm just like, you son of a bitch. I was getting so excited for more Ultra Mega, and you are just baiting me.
Yeah.
You know how badly I want it, and you're just punishing me for being a fan. I'm kidding, James. I love you. Please get this book done as fast as you can. But yeah, y'all, Ultra Mega. It's rad. It's kaiju fights. It's Power Rangers. It's body horror. It's disgusting. Misanthropic worldviews and nihilism and cynicism and guts and gore and cloacas throbbing.
Yes.
If there's one thing I want you to leave this 2.5-hour stream with, it is please go out and read this book.
Yeah.
Please find this book wherever you can and read it. And then the more of us that read it, the more of us can harass Image to get us more Ultra Mega because we need it. I want it so bad.
Yep.
I really thought that you were going to say the thing that away from the stream, if you write Throb Cloaca in your book, that you definitely at least will have one person that loves it, and that would be Kev.
That's true. Any comics that feature throbbing cloacas will be covered on stream. We will give you a personal shout out. But hell yeah, guys. If you're watching the stream, if you're watching this video when it goes live on YouTube, comment what comics also feature good throbbing cloacas or good kaiju recommendations. Share whether or not you read this book, you got anything out of it, you liked enjoying us ramble for 2 hours about it. This book rules.
Oh yeah.
I love it. Manny loves it. Ben loves it. Sam will love it when he finishes it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
I kind of already love it now.
Well, there you go. That's a glowing review.
Oh yeah.
All right, y'all. I think we can call the stream there. I am exhausted. It's been a long day. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah. Same.
Yep, thanks everybody.
Yeah, appreciate it.